Eric, it's a soggy spring day, but that's a good thing for what we're going to talk about.
It is indeed, yes, vernal pools. Spring rains and melting snow are really critical for the creation of vernal pools. Vernal pools are just what the name says. It's a pool of water, so it's not flowing, it's standing water. They're shallow, they're not deep water. And vernal meaning springtime, so it's a spring phenomenon. They're usually temporary. Oftentimes by mid or late summer they've dried up completely. But they're really critical habitat places for much of Maine's wildlife.
And when does it stop being a vernal pool and become a pond or a lake or something?
Oh, great question. It's not a permanent body of water. And the other big component of a vernal pool is there's no fish. Fish obviously have to be in water at all times, so if it dries up, there's no fish populations. And that's the key component because many amphibians, like things like frogs and salamanders, use vernal pools for their breeding sites. And so there are over 400 species of wildlife in Maine that are really, vernal pool is critical to their life cycle.
And just talk about that life cycle for a bit. After the vernal pool, what happens?
Yeah, so the vernal pools, the salamanders that are emerging right now, things like spotted salamanders and other frogs like wood frogs and spring peepers people might be hearing at night right now. They move down to the vernal pools, they mate, they lay their eggs, and the eggs then hatch in the vernal pool. And there's often a larval stage where they'll stay in the vernal pool, and then they metamorphosize into an adult form and move out of the vernal pool back into a terrestrial landscape in a forest. And so it's really that key component of that juvenile stage and reproduction, and from there they disperse to wide areas. So vernal pool may be a small area, but it incorporates critical habitat for wildlife from a large surrounding area.
And vernal pools are under threat from various things, including some threats at the state legislature. Let's talk about those for a minute.
Certainly, yes. There's some significant wildlife habitat legislation in the state of Maine that's critical for protecting wildlife, and there is specific regulations for vernal pools. It is currently being debated in terms of reducing the protected area around these vernal pools, and that would dramatically impact this wildlife because it's not just the vernal pool itself, but the surrounding areas that support it. It's a forested landscape, and so while there are some activities that are certainly able under the permit process to carry on, there are others that need protection, and it's really critical for their wildlife to keep these really important laws we've already passed intact.
And some of the reasons for the legislation to reduce the vernal pools, what other uses would they be used for?
Actually, at this point, there's hardly any permits that have come up since this legislation passed to even have to be in conflict with it, but it would be development would be the critical component for this that would maybe threaten these places. But and the reality is it's very little conflict that usually can be sorted out with a permit process. So what we have on the books right now works, and we'd love to see it stay that way.
And you have an event coming up for Earth Day that pegs right into this vernal pools and the amphibians, right?
Absolutely, we sure do. We have next Friday, April 22nd is coming up, and it's a live amphibians and reptiles program. So I'll be going out to vernal pools and other wetland locations and finding all sorts of fun critters to share with children and families and everyone who might be interested to learn more about these really important wildlife that we have, the salamanders, the frogs, the toads, the snakes, the turtles, other amphibians and reptiles that may occur here in Maine.
And if people want more information about that program and participating in it, where do they go?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. Right to our website, MaineAudubon.org. They can learn more about it there. They can also stop by the Environmental Center here at Gilsland Farm, pick up a copy of Habitat, our newsletter, or give us a call.